is here for you. It helps you in all you do. Helps you know you do. So tune in and now enjoy the fun. Just join us now, enjoy the show.
Hello everyone, my name is Garrett, and today is a great day to learn something new.
So let's do that together. My name is Gabe. Friends, welcome to
Studio Classroom. Friends, thanks for joining us for a new lesson. I think this one will be a fun one. Let's just tell you today's title. It's called Further Insight: What Your Pet is Really Thinking.
So, do you have a pet? Perhaps you have a furry pet like a cat or a dog or a little rabbit. Perhaps you have another kind of pet like a turtle or a fish. My kids have some stag beetles, some rhino beetles. We have a little hermit crab, although I think he fell out of his cage and he's walking around somewhere.
Ooh.
I wonder what he's thinking right now.
Yeah, you know, I'm sure people have asked this question for years and years. Of course, people love their pets very much, but the amount of communication there is quite limited.
Exactly. If you have a cat, it's just meow. Yeah, that's right. Meow. Okay, cool. But what are they really thinking, right? Well, our lesson is going to get into this idea. So let's get into the first reading of the day.
Further Insight: What Your Pet is Really Thinking. An arm of psychology helps people better understand their pets. Have you ever wanted to ask your pet why it's doing what it's doing? A pet psychologist could clue you in on what's happening behind those curious eyes. His or her training and education make them ideal professionals to arrive at inferences about pets' various psychological states based on their behavior.
Hi everyone, welcome to Language Lab. I'm Jack. 我们先来看名词 inference， 重音在第一音节，念作 inference， 意思是推论、推断结果。来看个例句 ：The teacher had her students write a short paragraph making inferences about the novel based on the title alone. 老师要学生只根据书名写一篇短文，来推论这本小说的内容。Inference 的动词就是把字尾的 ence 去掉，变成 infer。这时重音是在第二音节，意思是推论、推断。譬如 Are you trying to infer that I don't know basic math just because I counted on my fingers? 你是不是因为我用手指算数，就推断我不懂基本数学？ Infer 字尾加 able 就变成副词 inferably。则是指可合理推断的，譬如 The speaker didn't name any names, but he was inferably critical of the president. 这位演讲者没有点名道姓，但可以推断他是在批评总统。
The study of psychology is the study of how our brains work and how we think. But our article today is not talking about how people think, but how our pets think.
That's right. And of course, in our title, there is kind of a play on words here with that word further, right? Because a lot of pets do have fur. We don't call it hair like we do with humans, right? It's fur that a dog has or a cat has. So further, of course, is a word that means you're going to learn something more. Further insight is learning more insight about something.
And we're getting further insight into psychology. We're talking about one arm of psychology. Now here, that word arm is used in a special way. It means a part or a branch of a larger field of study.
That's right. Of course, psychology is a very general term that could refer to a lot of different things, right? But here we're talking about this particular arm of psychology. For another example, he works in the medical arm of the government.
And one other fun usage of that word could be different parts of a bigger building. A hospital might have different arms that specialize in different kinds of care. Well, our article says an arm of psychology helps people better understand their pets.
Okay, have you ever wanted to ask your pet why it's doing what it's doing? Of course, you could just ask it in your language, but your pet might not understand, right? A pet psychologist could clue you in on what's happening behind those curious eyes.
All right, let's get into some of our terms there, starting with this phrase, to clue you in. That's to give you information that you don't already know.
Perhaps you missed class at school and you could ask your classmate, hey, could you clue me in on what happened in class yesterday? And if you ask a psychologist in this particular arm of psychology, they might help you better understand what your pet is thinking. What's going on behind those curious eyes? Curious often means wanting to know or to learn more. For example, maybe you're curious about how birds fly.
Well, the eyes of your pet might look like they are curious. We read on his or her training and education make them ideal professionals to arrive at inferences about pets' various psychological states based on their behavior.
Let's talk about that word training. This is practice and learning to get better at something. You could say she's in training to become a nurse.
Well, here we're talking about the special training that these pet psychologists go through so that they have this expertise or knowledge. We have one more phrase to talk about here, and that is psychological states.
Psychological state. This is the mental or emotional condition of a person, or in this case, a pet.
For example, stress and happiness are examples of two different psychological states.
So we're going to learn a little bit more about how these pet psychologists can help us and clue us into what our pets are really thinking in our next reading.
Further insight, what your pet is really thinking. To begin understanding pet behavior, it's essential to recognize that pets experience emotions much like humans do. Pets can feel happiness, fear, frustration, anxiety, or excitement, and their actions often reflect these emotions. For example, a dog that chews up the couch while its owner is away isn't being naughty. It's likely dealing with separation anxiety or boredom. Similarly, cats need quiet, enclosed spaces where they can hide and feel safe. Without these, they can become stressed or even aggressive.
「今天的 usage tip 要来看 it's essential to 加动词的句型。形容词 essential 的意思是不可或缺的，经常搭配虚主词 it， 并且会接不定词引出真正的主词。如果要特别指出对某人来说做某事是必要的话，就可以在 essential 后面加上 for 加某人。除了 essential 之外，也可以使用 important、vital、crucial、necessary 等表示重要的形容词。来看个例句 ：It is crucial for parents to set a good example for their children. 父母为孩子树立好的榜样是非常重要的。
Earlier, you heard that term psychological states, but we want to ask the question, what exactly are the psychological states that your pet might have?
Well, to begin understanding pet behavior, it's essential to recognize that pets experience emotions much like humans do. So not exactly in the same way, but a lot like or much like humans do. But let's talk about that word behavior.
Well, behavior is the way that someone acts. Here, we're not yet talking about why they do that or what they're thinking.
That's right. For example, Tony's good behavior earned him a reward in class. And here we're talking about pet behavior. A lot of pets do experience emotions, right? Pets can feel happiness, fear, frustration, anxiety, or excitement. Let's take a look at a couple of these emotions. First, we have frustration.
All right, this is the feeling of being upset when things don't go the way that you want them to.
That's right. We have all felt frustrated at one time or another. Feeling frustrated, right? She felt frustrated when the computer crashed.
That would make a lot of sense. Next, let's talk about anxiety. This is that feeling of worry or fear when you're not sure if something bad is going to happen.
You know, in our last lesson, we were talking about Carrie Underwood and how she felt a lot of nervousness before going on stage. She may also have felt anxiety at one point or another. You know, people get anxious before giving a speech or performing in different ways. But people also and pets also feel excitement as well. We read here, and their actions often reflect these emotions.
All right, so they have these emotions, and then we have behavior. For example, a dog that chews up the couch while its owner is away isn't being naughty. It's like dealing with separation anxiety or boredom.
That's right. It's likely dealing with these emotions, right? It's probably dealing with these emotions. What is separation anxiety? I've heard this phrase in relationship to parents and their children, but it can happen with pets too. So it's a strong worry when away from someone you love.
So it's a special kind of anxiety. For example, the dog showed separation anxiety when its owner left for the weekend.
And of course, we have this feeling of boredom sometimes as well. This is the feeling of having nothing to do or just being uninterested in something.
Exactly. If you have that feeling, don't say, I'm boring. Make sure you say, I'm bored. You might complain of having boredom.
That's right. If you say, I'm boring, what that's telling other people is that you are actually a boring person to be around. You're not very interesting at all. No, you want to say, I'm bored, or this is boring. But friends, we're talking about a lot of emotions that pets might have, like frustration, excitement, separation anxiety, or boredom. Similarly, cats need quiet, enclosed spaces where they can hide and feel safe.
Well, if a space is enclosed, that means it's surrounded by something on all sides or almost all sides. That could be a nice hiding place, like a box for that cat to get away.
Yeah, the puppies stayed in an enclosed area for safety. Whenever I think about chickens, I often think about chickens being in a chicken coop, which is often an enclosed area for those chickens as well. And this is true about cats. I have grown up with cats. I love cats, but a lot of cats do like to have a special place where they can just kind of crawl away and hide somewhere without being noticed or found.
They certainly are quite different from a dog. Well, friends, we're learning a lot. We have more. First, let's go to our info cloud. Hello, friends. Welcome back to Info Cloud. Rex, have you ever tried to see the world through someone else's eyes?
I have. It's not always easy, but it helps us better understand others. I have made a lot of friends because I've learned to see the world through other people's eyes.
To see through someone else's eyes means to imagine how they feel, think, or experience something.
It's about empathy, putting yourself in someone else's position, even if their background or situation is different from yours.
Everyone sees life through their own lens, shaped by their past and their values.
Instead of judging others too quickly, try to understand how they might be seeing things. That's definitely something we can always work on.
Seeing through someone else's eyes doesn't mean you agree. It just means you care enough to try.
When you do, you'll often discover more connections and understand more than you ever expected.
很多时候，人与人之间的关系出问题，是因为我们很少站在对方的立场着想。See through someone's eyes， 字面上是透过对方的眼光来看，意思是设身处地的站在别人的立场来看事情。Try to see through her eyes before you criticize。在批评之前，先试着站在她的角度想一想。用不同的视角来看问题，我们更容易了解他人，也减少不必要的冲突。换位思考是理解与尊重的起点。这就是今天的 InfoCloud， 我们下次云端见。
Further insight, what your pet is really thinking. Social needs are huge for many pets. Dogs, for instance, do well in a pack because they learn about social hierarchy, communication, and behavior. In other words, they get a social education from their interactions with other dogs. You can also tell a lot from a dog's tail, ears, and eyes. A wagging tail can mean happiness, while a tail between the legs usually signals fear or anxiety. Cats flatten their ears when they feel anxiety or fear, and a swiftly moving tail can be positive or negative, depending on other cat body language.
"接下来看 wag 这个动词，它是指摇摆尾巴或身体部位。譬如 Horses wag and swish their tails to keep flies from bothering them。马会摇头摆尾来驱赶苍蝇的骚扰。Wag 如果当名词，则是指摇摆的动作。譬如 With a wag of his tail and a happy bark, the puppy ran into the little boy's arms。小狗摇着尾巴，开心地叫着，跑进小男孩的怀里。来看一个 wag 的惯用语 ，wag one's tongue， 意思是喋喋不休，搬弄是非。譬如 If you'd stop wagging your tongue and let me explain, you wouldn't be so angry。如果你停止喋喋不休，听我解释清楚，你就不会这么生气了。
In our lesson today, we are talking about two of the most popular pets, dogs and cats. And here we'll get into what some behaviors might be telling us about the emotional state of your pet.
Well, the first sentence we see here is social needs are huge for many pets. This does not mean that their social needs are very big. When we see the word huge here, we could think of it as being super important. It's really important for many pets.
It's something to pay attention to. Dogs, for instance, do well in a pack because they learn about social hierarchy, communication, and behavior.
We want to talk about this phrase to do well or to do well doing something or in a certain situation. This is to succeed or perform nicely in a situation.
Let's use it in a sentence. He does well in group projects because he's a good communicator.
We also want to talk about something else from this sentence, and that is that H word, hierarchy. This is a system where people or things are ranked at different levels.
Exactly. For example, the company has a clear hierarchy with the boss at the top and me at the bottom.
Of course, the employees are always at the bottom in that kind of hierarchy, right? But of course, there are hierarchies in the animal kingdom as well. And we continue with the next part of this sentence. In other words, they get a social education from their interactions with other dogs. Whenever you see that phrase, in other words, you're going to often hear a clearer explanation of something.
Sure. All right, so they get an education from other dogs. You can also tell a lot from a dog's tail, ears, and eyes.
A wagging tail means happiness. I think a lot of us know that.
Yes, a wagging tail on a dog means happiness, but if you see a cat kind of moving its tail back and forth, that probably means the cat is not actually that happy. So, these different behaviors will say something different depending on the animal. But yes, a wagging tail can mean happiness, while a tail between the legs usually signals fear or anxiety.
All right, it signals fear or anxiety. If it signals that, it shows that, or it gives us a sign or understanding that something is going on behind the scenes.
For example, yawning often signals that someone is tired or perhaps even bored, right? No yawning right now, friends. Let's continue here. Cats flatten their ears when they feel anxiety or fear. You see that word flatten. This means to make something flat or level.
Like you might use a roller to flatten out a dough before making a pizza.
So cats will flatten their ears if they're feeling a little bit of fear, and a swiftly moving tail can be positive or negative. If something is happening swiftly, that means it's happening quickly. It's not slowly. So I shared earlier that when I see a cat's tail going back and forth, I often think that the cat probably isn't happy, but our lesson says it could be positive sometimes.
Okay, so maybe each cat has a slightly different personality.
Yeah.
Things it went through earlier in the day. Pets can be complicated, just like people.
Right, and our lesson does say it depends on other cat body language. So there are different ways that you can be in tune with your pet just by observing the behaviors that they have. Well, right now it is time for today's fun fact.
Hello, fact friends. I am Detective Ernest Finder, and I have a fun fact for you today. Did you know that yawning at a dog can help it calm down? This is because dogs are group animals and sometimes talk through yawning. It's true. When you yawn at your dog, it sends the signal that you are not threatening the dog and are saying, "Let's all relax." And that's today's fun fact.
I like this talk about it question, friends. So let's talk about it. Here it is. How can understanding the emotional and social needs of pets help improve the way we care for them? Garrett?
All right. Well, I think one part of this is that pets, just like people, can get sick or have different kinds of problems. But because we can't talk to our pets, it's hard to know what's going on. If you can tell what's going on from their behavior, that could help you give them better care.
That's right. And there are some things that are true about all of a certain kind of pet, like maybe all cats will do something because of a certain emotion, but there are certain behaviors that are because of your individual cat and their personality, or dog, or whatever other pet that you have. So it is very important to try to understand their emotions, and thankfully we can tell something about their emotions through their behaviors. Friends, that is all the time that we have for today, but we have more to learn about this lesson next time. My name is Gabe.
And my name is Garrett. We'll see you again next time, right here on Studio Classroom.
Friend lasts a lifetime. I am so proud to have you in my life. A good friend lasts a lifetime.